Good evening, everybody. I'm Gloria Gutiérrez-Arismendy, teacher researcher at the ASOCOPI since 2015 and research leader at the new school since 2018. I have explored research at school since 2008 in different school scenarios. For today, I will share the new school pedagogical experience, a bilingual school where the transformation to research as the methodological frame is being building since 2008. Well, this is the agenda, and I think that it is important to consider that the last part is more a discussion based on the experience I will share today, and in order to recreate the ideal scenario, reshaping the teaching and learning languages from a more critical perspective. So the school is an institution that represents an opportunity to me to grow up as a teacher researcher. In 2018, I was invited to mentor the school about research implementation as a pedagogical strategy. A year after, they invited me again, but for a full-time position. This is a bilingual school located in Medellin, where mindfulness practices are presented in the daily life school at the pedagogical and the pedagogical practices are based on building a deeper consciousness to be better people. So here, research as a strategy must be understood from a critical perspective to connect the philosophical school purpose along the learning and teaching process. The notion of critical is based on Freire theory. With this statement, change the world through the word. So the critical thinking orientation must produce changes. Understanding this perspective when implementing research at school, we must lever our students to transform their reality into a better one. In this stage for critical literacy, teachers help students to observe and recognize what can they reflect about the world. What can they transform? So critical literacy is not an approach. And as Vasquez says, it is a perspective, a way to be in the classroom. And of course, this is transformative for teachers and students. One of the most important actions for a critical literacy perspective is to build questions with students to question the world. Question the world to understand deeper what is needed to be changed. The teacher critical perspective is based on listening and highlighting students' voices, creating strategies for them to explore the world beyond the curriculum contents. Indeed, decolonizing the curriculum is allowed and needed if we want to implement research at school from a critical literacy perspective. We need to bring to school real problems and opportunities to transform the context, using the language as a bridge to empower students to understand with them the power of the language. So how to connect critical literacy in the classroom to research? Young's 2014 proposes 5 steps that I consider as a very good strategy for bringing a critical perspective to the classroom, and also to find, and I also find in those steps an initial route to implement research at school. And I said initial route, considering that research at school must be flexible and it presents a lot of methodological difference one school to another. So there is not any checklist to implement research as the main strategy for teaching and learning processes. So finding a nominate issue, it's just trying to connect what is going on in the world from a local or global stage to students' reality. And in that way, you are going to link that problem with the students' context. That is going to encourage them to think about what actions or what information we need to explore. Once the students recognize the information they are going to explore, then we need to figure out with them what kind of design we are going to do, what kind of outcome we are going to create together. So in that way, we need to be clear enough about it in order the rest of the process is going to be conducted and later for the teacher just to go and create something, okay? So it could be a short film, could be a maybe a talk, could be a paper, but you have to be clear enough about it in this point of the process. And you also need to consider the impact or the results that are going to be are going to appear as a result of the process. Considering also benefits and disadvantages, and imagining how the social effects are going to be explored or are going to be as a result. And finally, I find in those steps a useful way to explore research if we as teachers can bring to the class real and different possibilities. Then we need to move from reading on web to explore context with where the problem is situated with our students. It means just like visiting places out of school, bringing experts to talk about the topic with our students, analyze possible solutions and create those solutions with our students in order they can just live like real faced. How can they transform? Could be something simple and small at the beginning, but the opportunity, we need to bring them the opportunity to see how real effects are placed on the cultural or a specific context where they are just playing as transformers. And yeah, so aesthetic dimension of critical literacy. So after this short discussion about critical literacy, I will talk about this aesthetic dimension of critical literacy. Why do I talk about that dimension? Considering that aesthetic dimension from an expanded view, this is about the way we are bonded to the world and how that connection allows us to create and recreate symbols, words, places. It means symbolizing and naming what we know as reality. I consider that students formed to connect to the world is the most important factor to recognize what they need to say, creating strategies to allow them to express the way they perceive the world means to implement multimodal approaches where drawing, performing, recording videos, composing, among others, are very important. So the gesture is ready to display a certain identity that springs up to reveal what it's not said by them. On this way, teachers can recognize the students formed to connect and express their context to then identify clearly their needs and possible contexts where their research project will be developed. So teaching by projects represents an opportunity to explore students' interests, a way to develop awareness, to transform realities, their own realities, considering the need to provide meaningful situations to students. I think that the contextualized language experiences must be vital, and as teacher, we must facilitate our students a reflective cultural space where they can explore the language according to their context and benefits. In that way, natural interaction surges as a part also of a critical practice. So the role of teacher is to provoke in students the need to question specific contexts. Context were posed because of teacher listening and reading students' aesthetic dimension. The teacher prepares the scenario to encourage students to ask about their context and go beyond themselves. Teacher guides the students, and then students will develop a narrative along the process of the project development. On the other side, the student's role is to is just like search for the information needed, answer the question they proposed at the beginning of the process, and to organize all the information to set their findings. So here the role of the teacher is very important to articulate students' ideas and needs to some of the classes, to provide correct sources. I mean, just be with your students when they are searching in the web. Bring them the sources and meaningful experiences to help them to solve their question. And so asking and answering with our students what and what for every class explanation or activity is a summary about how I connect critical literacy to research at school, to research at the new school, because what and what for is something that we always use in our school before to start an activity or class. So what as the way we read the word, identifying opportunities to real world problems. Then what? To rewrite with students the word. It means to get into the action. So the critical consciousness appears here as a result of transforming the word, the context explored. So how can we go beyond the curriculum structure, beyond the second language teaching structures, to empower students to use the language to rename their words, transforming classrooms into places for transformation? The research scenario connected to the language learning is a process of understanding that if research works for decolonizing the curriculum, then we need to focus on what students want to explore about the world and transform the teaching practices to help them to transform the world too. So we need to keep a place in and time in their skills for research, connecting the research process to each subject along the process, integrating and crossing the learning process. And how do we transform text with our students? And when I say text, I'm trying to think in a multimodal way, the way they are interpreting the world. So just a reflection comes to my head, and it's this: bringing the same activities to your classes for 20 years doesn't mean that you have 20 years of experience. It means a year of experience doing the same for 20 years. So research represents an opportunity to do different things, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to explore with your students. Once they proposed a topic and you realize you don't have idea about that topic, you need to go, you need to study, you need to figure out how you're going to connect it to your classes or not. You need to understand what they want to learn about it, and you are going to start a kind of trip with them, exploring and learning new things and creating new activities, searching for information, asking for help, working with your colleagues. This is a very important thing. Here you need to work with your colleagues. You need to work with them. You need to share ideas, to create together the scenario for your students. That is a really good advantage of working by projects. So I'm going to share short video summarizing some of the process we started on 2019 as an official methodological approach, a methodological base in our school, and it's very short. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. Okay, I think that we can conclude that research school is a powerful scenario to empower students to explore the world, to transform it. And the language works as a tool to express themselves about that word they are reflecting about. Teachers as mentors for students um, they need to read and prepare better to guide the process. That's why it's not quite useful to do the same activities you're doing as just teacher of the subject. You need to go a little bit beyond of it. In critical literacy, it's empowered by exploring multimodal approach. Why? Because you need to go out, search for information, bring experts, find a way to create a powerful meaning, a powerful message with your students. And that process of meaning making most of the time is going to be multimodal, because students are not just going to write a reflection. They always go beyond even the uses of the language. As you saw, we have different English levels at school. We have students from other countries who maybe who don't speak Spanish, and some of our students don't speak English as well as other classmates because they arrive to school or they start working at studying at school later than others. So that enriched the process. That enriched the process because they are working together in their projects and they need to express what they learned, what they did, and all of them have to participate. It's mandatory for all of them to participate, to use the language, and that enriched their processes because they realize what they need to improve, or they realize how good at are they at English right now. But most important is to create the message together. Well, thank you so much. Now, I want to discuss with you about this question, or if you have any other question.